For 40 years, King David had ruled the people of Israel. When the time came for him to die, he called his son Solomon to his bedside, and he gave the rule of the kingdom into his hands. It was a heavy task for the young prince, for Israel was a great nation. But his father reminded him that the Lord would give him wisdom and understanding. David said, "There is much work for you to do, my son. But above all, don't forget to walk in God's ways and obey his commandments." It was a happy day for the people of Israel when Solomon was made king. Trumpets blew and the people shouted. Solomon was a good king, and remembering his father's words, he asked God to guide him. One night, the Lord appeared to Solomon and said, "Ask what I shall give thee." Solomon was filled with wonder, but he didn't hesitate. He told the Lord he wanted to be a good, upright king like his father David, but he didn't know how to rule a great nation. So he asked God to give him wisdom to do what was right. God was pleased when Solomon asked for wisdom rather than riches, and promised him great wisdom and an understanding heart. God also promised to bless Solomon with honor and wealth if he obeyed his commandments. Solomon realized that truly the Lord had spoken to him, and he praised God. "Happy is the man that findeth wisdom and understanding," he said. Soon Solomon's new wisdom was put to the test. One day 2 women were ushered into the court and stood before the king. They were crying and quarreling. One was holding a baby in her arms. The other woman pointed to her. "This woman has taken my child," she said. "She rolled on her own son in the night and smothered him. Then she took my child and put the dead one beside me." "That's not true," the second woman said. "This child is mine and the dead one is hers." "No, the child is mine," the first woman said to the king. King Solomon looked at them, and they stopped arguing. Everybody in the court was quiet, waiting to hear what Solomon would say. "Bring me a sword." The women and all the people looked at him in surprise. Quickly, a soldier sprang forward, his sword bared. Then the king said, "Divide the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other." Then he watched the 2 mothers closely. The first woman shrugged. "That's fair enough. Then the child will be neither mine nor hers." But the other woman threw herself at the king's feet. "Oh, my lord king, do not kill the child. I'd rather you gave him to the other woman than kill him." Then Solomon knew the answer. He said, "Give her the child," for the king knew that she was the real mother. King Solomon was talked about in all the land because he was kind and just, wiser than any king before him, and all his people were happy. Solomon built a magnificent temple for the praise and worship of God. He also built courts and palaces in Jerusalem. His fame spread far and wide. In the distant court of Sheba in southern Arabia, merchants told their queen of the wealth and wisdom of Solomon. But she could hardly believe their stories. She wanted to see for herself. So she traveled 1,000 miles across the harsh desert, followed by camels, bearing gifts for the king, gold, spices, and jewels. At last she stood in Solomon's magnificent court. There were many things she wanted to see, many questions she wanted to ask this wise man. Solomon showed her the temple where his people worshiped God, and took her to see his palace. As the Queen of Sheba sat at Solomon's table and listened to him, she realized that his people loved and served him because he was a wise and good king. She said, "Happy are thy men. Happy are these thy servants that hear thy wisdom." But Solomon knew that his wealth and earthly possessions would not last forever. For he said, "Riches make themselves wings." Solomon knew that his magnificent temple, which had taken thousands of men 7 years to build, his great palace with columns of carved, the jeweled courts, the ivory throne, all the riches of his great kingdom would pass away someday. The glory of Solomon has long since departed. But the wisdom God gave him survived the passing years and has been strengthened with each test of time. And today we can find blessing in the wisdom of God as spoken by his servant Solomon. Wisdom recorded in the book of Proverbs. He that hath friends must show himself friendly. A wise son heareth his father's instructions. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Solomon's greatest treasure was the wisdom which God had given him. The Bible tells us that we can find the treasure of real wisdom too, by believing in the Lord Jesus Christ and by following him. For we read that he is the one in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge.